Chapter 9. Dark Ritual. After clearing out the inner city, Rama ordered his scouts to push into the surrounding forest and pick off any stragglers. Squads of 15 headed north and west to verify the fleeing Lestrygonians' whereabouts. Moving in from the north and east were the Cura soldiers, led by Enzo Cura. The vampiric clan swept the battlefield, consuming the fallen giants' bodies and increasing their own strength, taking in the sights from his saddle, breathing in the vile air of the city. When Enzo entered the town square, he raised a hand in acknowledgement.
You survived again, Rama. You're always finding yourself in these shit shows.
Smiling, he led his men in.
Why are you here? I didn't receive any information about the Kurus getting involved in this mess.
I was asked to do a favor by a friend. Minimize the damage as much as I could.
May I ask who?
It doesn't matter. All that matters is we got here in time to help a bit.
Walker, smothered in sweat and blood, walked gingerly toward the two leaders.
Lieutenant, where do you need me?
Rama looking down at the prince.
Find Lilith. Her crazy decision to pursue Rayleigh is giving me a bad feeling. Help them with whatever fighting is left and bring them both back.
Yes, sir.
The bloody prince turned north and headed toward the forest. Breathing in the stale air, Walker followed the trail of blood until the scent of lavender struck his senses. He followed it into a cleared area where the trees had been pulled by their roots from the ground. He moved forward and saw Lilith and Rayleigh. An intense rush of wind pounded against him, bruising his flesh as Lilith angrily continued to manipulate the elements.
Hey, the fight's over,
Walker yelled, his voice distorted by the wind. It barely reached her. She let up on the spell, finally running out of energy. Rayleigh lay unconscious on the ground next to her.
Are you all right, Demon Principum?
Walker asked as he carefully made his way closer.
It appears you added your own flavor to this chaos, Lilith.
I'm not in the mood for your sarcasm.
The exhausted woman removed her hand from Rayleigh's chest and rose to her feet.
Why are you here and not in the square?
I'm here to aid in the capture or killing of the fleeing Lestrygonians' leader. Which way did they go? And is Rayleigh okay to continue?
I don't know,
she said, looking down at his battered body. Walker was taken back by how fierce the man looked even when lying unconscious.
Walker, the last I saw of Hirian, he was being carried off by a giant woman. They were heading north.
All right.
Walker lifted Rayleigh's heavy body onto his shoulders.
Let's go put an end to the day's events.
They moved north together, continuing Rayleigh's pursuit. When they reached the open fields, the funk of rotting corpses overpowered Lilith's senses.
Gals,
Walker said, pointing. The feral pack was stalking the tired Ravina and her weakened king. Flanking the ghouls, Lilith fired off a blast of lightning, piercing their flesh and adding the smell of charred, decaying bodies to the stench. To the right of Ravina and Hirian, Walker positioned himself for an ambush. When they got close, he stopped the blood flow in their bodies, knocking Ravina unconscious. She dropped the wounded king to the ground as she fell to her knees. Walker stopped beside Lilith, waiting for an opportunity to complete his task. He let his senses spread across the plain, searching for more ferals, as he created a prison of blood around Hirian and Ravina. He set the unconscious Rayleigh down as he approached the giants. He felt the eyes of the scavengers on him. Mixing his mental energies, he picked the two giants up.
We need to report back to Rama,
he said to Lilith.
There are signs of humans in that fort. They may need our help.
Father Canis poked his head out, studying the situation and eyeing the prince. A loud eruption came from the forest. The frightening levels of magic paralyzed everyone, even causing the ghouls to cower in fear.
There's no bloodlust in that energy, but the power is so heavy I can barely breathe.
Walker fell to the ground, releasing Hirian and Ravina from his grasp. The raw energy awakened Rayleigh. Still suffering from the bloodlust, his instincts took over and he began searching the horizon for the threat. He felt the gaze of primordial eyes on him. The colossal creature stayed hidden in the darkness of the forest, but the trees waved fiercely as the ground shook. Rayleigh gave into his fear and rage and lunged toward the forest, lashing out dangerously in every direction. Seeing the threat, Alfric emerged from the fort with blade in hand and released a bit of his energy, causing Rayleigh to focus on him. The priest slowly approached the raging warrior, trying to talk him down.
Shit,
Walker said as he reached out, trying to bind Rayleigh in place. Alfric's body, remembering its training, reacted to the threat before him. Lunging forward, Alfric attempted to pierce the enraged Rayleigh. Rolling out of the way, Rayleigh moved closer. Dropping his blade, Alfric reached out and grabbed Rayleigh by his arm, pushing the out-of-control Daemon away from the fort. Then he picked up his sword and sheathed it. Seeing the situation escalate, Walker yelled,
Lilith, I need your help. I can't restrain Rayleigh and keep the giants imprisoned. I don't have the stamina.
Focusing her power into the ground, Lilith creating a pit of mud to slow Rayleigh down. Alfric released more energy, creating a defensive wall around himself as he carefully backed away. As Rayleigh lunged toward Alfric, his hands seemed big enough to block out the light. Remembering his foot techniques, Alfric moved out of harm's way, drew his blade again, and swiped it down with precision on Rayleigh's arm. Taking the blow without flinching, Rayleigh tried to overpower the priest. Darting from right to left, Alfric stabbed Rayleigh's legs, shattering the blade but crippling the warrior. Rayleigh's regenerative powers began working almost immediately. Lilith used all the arcanum she had gathered to summon gravitational forces and pin Rayleigh in place. Fight through the manipulations, Rayleigh tried to counter her, but she increased the gravity around him, crushing his lungs and knocking him unconscious. Falling down onto his backside, Alfric exhaled in relief. He felt a sharp pain in his ribs, where a sizable bruise was developing.
What a monstrous man,
he said to himself. He got his legs under him and walked back to the fort, closing the gates behind him. Lilith focused on controlling Rayleigh's movements, sensing no immediate threats. She and Walker took the opportunity to catch their breath. Several hours later, the gates to the fort opened again. Alfric emerged waving a hand. Walker did not let his guard down. Another priest appeared at the gates carrying a child on his back. Behind the worn-out clergyman, knights stood guard. Walker raised his hands, showing he had no ill intent. He spoke to the first priest.
It's over. I've been ordered to end the fighting and bring my comrades and the prisoners back to the city. You're all welcome to come with us. I'm sure my commanding officers would like to speak to you.
The priest looked Walker in the eyes, searching for signs of treachery. Finally he gripped his sword and came out, gesturing to those he'd sworn to protect.
All right, everyone. Collect your things. The battle is over, and we're heading back into town.
Veru, the overbearing commander, stood behind the priest giving directions to the scared villagers.
Children line up 2 by 2. Find a buddy and stick with them. Adults do the same. We're leaving now.
The villagers excitedly grabbed the few weapons, clothes, and other things they had grabbed when fleeing the battle. Alfric stood outside the fort, surveying the area. A soft voice broke his concentration.
You pulled those survivors through. I hope they appreciate how rare it is to survive an incident like this.
Lilith appeared at his side.
These people don't need to appreciate me. It's my duty to see them through this.
He gestured at Rayleigh.
The unconscious one over there is your colleague? He's a terrifying monster.
Lilith was staring at Rayleigh, dangling from Walker's back.
Yeah, he surprised us all today. I wonder why he attacked you.
He almost killed me. It might have been my fault, so I won't hold a grudge. But I am concerned for the safety of the villagers.
Your fault?
Lilith asked, surprised.
I released too much of my energy. I'm out of practice and he probably perceived me as an enemy.
From what I saw, you fended him off rather well. That's what I meant about your rarity. Most priests would have run and left those people behind.
A gruff voice interrupted Lilith.
Father Canis is a hero. He always chooses selflessness, and he will always choose the right thing even at the cost of his own comfort. Rarity does not begin to describe him.
Vera looked Lilith and Walker over as he directed the townsfolk out of the fort.
What happened in the city?
Alfric asked.
We attacked the Lestrygonians from the southern gate, losing most of our army. We thought the initial push into the city was a failure. Our friend managed to change that in minutes. We ultimately took back the city because of him.
Looking at Rayleigh, Lilith's tired eyes showed softness.
The cost of the victory might be his sanity.
Commander Vera moved closer.
That thing you're carrying might have given us a scare, but these people will never forget how he saved them. I don't know what's going on with him, but to do the things you described, he must be an Ashura.
Varu? Don't make claims like that.
Alfric said avidly.
I'm only telling the truth. Even if he's not a battle god, he's going to be a real pain in the ass for the Pantheon to deal with. Especially if he learns to control his power. I've heard of Berserker's blood, but this was the first time I saw such power.
Walker turned around after overhearing the two holy men.
Don't you worry about him, he's our rookie, and we'll deal with him our way.
Lilith smiled as she joined Walker.
I'm sure he'll be in trouble with the higher-ups. This idiot broke ranks, so he'll probably be under lock and key for a while.
Straight-faced and exhausted, Walker headed back toward his prisoners. Using the blood bubble, he lifted their bodies and continued in the direction of the town. On the outskirts of Paul Vale, the Firenze army was killing wounded giants.
Oh, you found the pup.
Tyreen and Berlin emerged from the forest with the survivors of their company.
He made a mess of those giants. Who would have guessed our nervous little recruit could do this much damage?
Berlin took Rayleigh's body from Walker, lifting it like a doll. A loud grumbling broke through the other noise.
I'm starving, boss. I hope we've got something good to eat tonight.
Tyreen smiled, and the rest of the group laughed at their own rumbling stomachs and weak legs.
We'll have to see what's available in the town after we make camp. But don't get your hopes up. Most of our supplies were lost.
Seeing the scared faces of the locals, Tyreen smiled and headed over to greet them, loosening up his posture. He spread his arms wide and did his best to appear friendly.
You are under our protection until we are back in the city and the church's relief force arrives.
Expressions of relief came over the townsfolk, followed by fatigue.
The clergy has been contacted and support is on its way.
He gestured for them to follow him. Footsteps and light chatter echoed through the forest.
What kind of ability is that? Is that a blood sphere? Is the enemy trapped in it? These demon types sure have scary techniques.
Walker ignored them and continued to lead his prisoners back to Rama and the rest of the military. In the town they passed ruined buildings and broken roads. In the town square, they found the Cure and Firenze armies setting up camp and burning bodies. Ash filled the air, and the horrific groans and squeals of ghouls cried out in hunger. They would soon make their way into the city, scavenging flesh from corpses.
What the hell is that stench?
The air is saturated with the smell of rotting flesh being burned.
Lieutenant Rama, sir. We're hearing weird singing and laughing from the east.
Rama sat drinking coffee while looking through his notes and writing his report. The chatter made him lose his train of thought.
Don't stand outside all night. Come in and tell me what's going on.
Sir, we have word of a large gathering of darklings and ghouls in the vicinity. Do we have patrols assigned to that area? We've set up a 1-block containment area. The disturbance is 5 blocks from our guard posts, and seems to be heading out of the city in the direction of the farms. Rama stood, let out a hefty sigh, and dusted himself off. He drained the coffee in a few gulps.
I need 5 volunteers to patrol the area.
His men, exhausted and incoherent, missed the request. Rama began thinking about morale and continued on until he reached a fire where Tyreen, Berlin, Lewis, Walker, and Yoshi sat in a circle, roasting a deer Berlin had caught.
You guys still look lovely.
Tyreen turned.
Attention.
The small group of soldiers stood up.
Well, at least you're aware enough to hear me.
Yes, sir. What can we do for you?
I have reports of music and strange laughter to the east of the plaza. I need 5 people to check it out.
I'll send Yoshi and Louie. They should be enough to handle anything running around in the night. As you wish, Captain.
Yoshi and Lewis stood up, leaving behind their cooking dinner, and disappeared into the darkness.
I'm just going to sit here,
Rama said gingerly, taking a seat on some rubble.
Tyreen, how's your rookie doing?
He's still out cold, sir.
The officer answered.
Lilith is with him?
Yes, sir.
Good to hear. So what the hell was that? I've never seen anything like it.
Tyreen reached for a flask of fermented tea and poured some into a cup.
Paris was the last time I saw anything like it.
Really? I wasn't enlisted until after that.
During the battle, the church leader lost his shit. He had just ordered 1,000 men to their deaths. But one of the soldiers went on a slaughtering spree. It was surprising because the church rails against us altered, calling us vampires and demons. Anyway, this guy tore through the rebel army, growing stronger with every dead body.
I can guess what happened next. The church turned on him.
Correct. I was an auxiliary soldier for the Holy City's army. This guy was one of their holy knights. He tore through the church's army and changed the battle's focus. We spent the next 48 hours isolating and wearing him down.
Rayleigh isn't the same soldier?
No, he's not. That man was killed. Which is why when Rayleigh went berserk, it threw me off.
What's going to happen to him now, sir?
Rama stared into his cup.
I have to write it down and pass it up.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, my friend, it will be out of our hands.
The two sat in silence as they consumed the rest of the tea. Drums of fire crackled like a jazz band as a man's laughter echoed down the alleyways. Lewis and Yoshi followed the laughter and dancing shadows. Looking to his side, Lewis caught a glimpse of Walker's face. The prince was moving in the other direction, shaking his head.
I bet you 20-1 it's Kramer. That goddamn lunatic is barbecuing corpses. I won't take that bet.
The two reached the end of the block, where they found Kramer naked and covered in blood, dancing and matching the movements of the creatures around him. Ghouls danced around the fire, their eyes entranced, glowing with an orange hue as they tore into giant flesh and spurted blood into the humid air. Yoshi raised his scarred hands.
You dumbass, what are you doing?
Kramer's eyes fell on him, but he kept dancing. Yelling louder, rattling the ghouls, Yoshi called out again.
Don't you dare look at me that way. Get your murderous ass down here.
In a single movement, Kramer jumped over the fire, flinging blood in every direction with a smile, and landing in front of Yoshi, dousing the already irritated warrior with blood. Yoshi lowered his shoulders and drove a punch between Kramer's eyes.
The battle is over, pull yourself together. We don't have the patience for your stupid antics.
Kramer looked confused. Blood from his nose ran down to his lips.
Antics? I was performing a ritual blood dance for the emergence of a new god.
A new blood god?
Yoshi glared at Kramer, fists clenched. Lewis, sensing Yoshi's irritation, caught his arm.
Enough, Yoshi. We don't have time to play around with Kramer. And the ghouls are starting to look at us like snacks.
He grabbed Kramer, and the three turned back toward the camp. Kramer, now walking free, asked a sincere question.
How's the new guy doing?
His touch and go at the moon Bullilit is taking care of him.
Lewis said, looking up at the red moon.
The Demon Queen is taking care of him. Interesting development. Laughing theatrically, Kramer pulled out his blades and started juggling.
I'm going to get some rest,
Lewis said as they reached the camp.
Kramer, don't go running off again. If you do, I'll run those blades right through you.
Yoshi headed back to the tent Berlin had set up. The air was filled with a hearty aroma of herbs and stewing meats.
Berlin. I'm back, buddy,
Yoshi said, raising his tired arms.
Awesome. Did you guys find that asshole?
Yeah. We brought him back to camp. He's with the lieutenant,
Yoshi said, looking into the pot of food Berlin was stirring. The pepper made his eyes water.
Well, I guess if he's in Lieutenant Rama's sights, he can't cause too much trouble.
Berlin cleared his throat, spitting out some phlegm.
Maybe.
Yoshi's voice was laced with fatigue.
The food's almost done. I packed away some bear meat just waiting for it to tenderize.
Berlin pulled some seasonings from his pack.
Sounds great. By the way, have you checked in on Lilith and Rayleigh?
I have. He's doing a lot better. He's conscious now, but barely, and fatigued. I overheard that the Forenza elders are looking for him.
He stirred the small cauldron, and a thick fog of aromatics escaped.
You think Walker had something to do with it?
Yoshi's question made Berlin sit up.
No, by now word of what went on here must have spread. And reinforcements from the church have arrived. Paladins had been sent to reinforce the perimeter.
Paladins how? Did the lieutenant say anything?
Nope. Now let's eat and get some rest. I'm sure with the church nearby, fights will break out. We're going to need to be at our best just in case.
He handed Yoshi a bowl full of meat. Yoshi took a seat near the fire, holding the bowl up to his nose to take a whiff.
I agree, buddy. Plus your cooking always smells fantastic.
Hand out blankets and water to the survivors. Doctors, spread out and set up medical tents to treat the injured. Paladins, set up a perimeter and lock down the area around the camp. Finally, do not engage with demons. We are working with them to set up relief for Paul Vale.
Knight General, we found Father Alfric and Knight Commander Veru. They're eating stew and drinking water now. They don't have any major injuries.
The Knight General pointed to his subordinate.
Lead me to them. I want to know what happened.
Yes, sir. They're this way. The young soldier led his commanding officer over to the refugees. Sitting silently among the frightened and exhausted villagers, the priest and the knight commander finally had a chance to take a breath. They stared into a campfire while discussing the day's events.
You guys talking about something interesting?
Alfric glanced to his left and saw the general approaching.
Knight General Silver. I didn't know you were here.
He stood up and extended an arm in a welcoming gesture.
I just arrived. Once I heard you were involved, Alfric, I thought it would be prudent to find out from you just what happened. So we can start dealing with the political fallout.
Let's begin at the point when we arrived here.
They sat down, and Alfric outlined the events of the last few days, helped occasionally by Veru. He concluded with his short battle with Rayleigh.
Did you use your power, Alfric?
I did. I had no choice to protect the people. These villagers put their trust in the church and me.
Did anyone notice anything?
No. I only used my eyes, but Veru already knows what I'm capable of to some extent. And even he knows that I'm considered taboo by the cardinals.
I don't care about the cardinals or their taboos. It's all nonsense and make-believe. Now what about this soldier from the demons that turned the tide and defeated the giant king? I'd like to see a monster like that.
You going to kill him?
He shook his head.
From what you tell me, I don't have anything to fear as long as I'm not a threat. So I have no intention of even reporting his existence.
What do you mean?
The weakened priest asked.
Alfric, your instincts have dulled since you were exiled to the priesthood. Anyone who can best Hirian would leave more than minor injuries if he felt you were an enemy. He might have been able to sense your intentions. At the same time, he was berserk. Out of control.
Alfric looked around the area, then took a deep, tired breath.
That would make him a god of war.
Much like yourself, I bet, the general said. He may become an invaluable friend later on.
You're planning something?
Things need to change. I'm counting on you, as I have in the past. Still, you need to get your instincts back.
Being a priest won't make that easy.
Then you'll just have to become a paladin again and work your way back up.
You don't have that authority, Silver.
I just gave myself that authority.
Veru spoke up between loud slurps of tea.
I think the idea is a good one, Alfric. You've been hiding out in the priesthood for too long. Take back your glory and correct the lies about you. Restore your honor. You saved the order, you're a hero. It's time for everyone to know. And you have the support of the commanders?
General Silver looked at Veru.
Support of the commanders. Interesting.
All the current commanders were there. We all know the truth. And if Alfric accepts your offer, I'll follow him and help however I can.
You two are putting me in a position where I can't say no.
Alfric tilted his head back, catching a glimpse of night birds flying. He thought about the benefits of joining the paladins and of staying where he was.
You can't hide from your destiny forever, my friend. At some point it will force you into a decision. I just decided to take the risk and give you a choice.
Alfric lowered his head. Looking deadpan at his old friend and commander, he said,
Fine, I accept.
Silver raised a hand and called over his aide, a small man who seemed to be organized with an extra touch of cleanliness.
Soldier, go bring out the coffee and the brandy. I think my friends here have earned a treat. Alfric, Veru, we're going to toast the changing winds.
The small soldier efficiently pulled out coffee beans and ground them while boiling water over the open flame. Adding the grounds to the liquid, he eyeballed the water until it started to change color. Then he reached with tiny hands into his bag and pulled out coffee filters. Using two, he strained the brew into a clean copper pot. Alfric and Veru sat quietly as the general poured them each a cup. Then all three faced the golden fire, slowly sipping the black liquid. Alfric and Veru felt the tension in their bodies relax some more. Looking up from his cup, Veru addressed his commanding officer.
What are your plans, sir?
I want to investigate the 3 soldiers you met and the squad they belong to. My gut is in uncomfortable knots right now. I also have terrible news to share. Where is Reginald Aubrey?
He's with the other junior officers, getting chow and rest.
Veru answered. I see. I'm absorbing the remainder of your detachment into my command. I'll give you time to recuperate and provide new orders in a couple of days. Take the time to collect your thoughts and emotions. I fear we'll all need to be at our best for what's to come.
Alfric and Veru let General Silver's words sink in as they enjoyed the treat he'd left them.
How do you think Reginald will take the news about his brother?
Good question. They always seem to be at odds with each other, but there's no doubt they were close. I hope Reggie doesn't get some dumb idea about revenge. It won't end well. It never does.
Audrey asked me to come to Paulvale, you know. He said if a miracle could happen, maybe I could spark it. I never imagined that conversation would be our last.
He took the steaming cup from his lips.
I never understood your relationship with Audrey. By all accounts, you should have been enemies, but you were close.
Just close enough to make Reginald uneasy. I'll find the time to speak to him at a later date.
Alfric reached out to the fire, taking more coffee for himself.